Have you ever lived with someone who seemed perfectly normal at first, only to realize they were making your life a living nightmare? Well, my story is one that you won't believe. I moved to a new city for my first big job after college, thinking it was all going to be smooth sailing. But little did I know, my roommate Derek had other plans. What was supposed to be a fresh start in my career soon turned into a nightmare of manipulation, sabotage, and betrayal. It's a story that started with excitement but quickly spiraled into chaos. You won't believe how it all unfolded. Let me take you back to the moment when everything started. I had just graduated from college, excited and hopeful for the future. After several months of interviews, applications, and rejections, I finally landed a job. Not just any job, but the one I had been dreaming about. It was the perfect opportunity. It was the career I'd been working towards for 4 years. The excitement was overwhelming. But of course, there was a catch. The company was based in a new city completely different from the one I grew up in. At first, it seemed like the move would be just another step in my journey. I was ready to embrace the adventure of living somewhere new, learning new things, and growing in my career. But moving to a new city was not as easy as I had imagined. I left everything behind, my friends, my family, my comfort zone, and walked into an unfamiliar world. I was now a small fish in a much bigger pond. The pressure was on, but I was determined to make it work. I was excited about the job, of course, but there was also an underlying fear of the unknown, fear of having to start fresh, away from everything familiar. And that's when the company offered to help us with housing arrangements. It seemed like a great deal at the time. Moving into an apartment with a coworker, Derek, was supposed to make things easier. Little did I know, this arrangement would soon become a living nightmare. The company assigned Derek and me as roommates. I didn't know Derek very well, but we were both fresh hires. We had similar backgrounds, both coming straight from college, so we assumed we'd have a lot in common. At first, it seemed like it would be the perfect setup, a way to save money and ease into the transition to a new city. But I had no idea how wrong I was. At first glance, Derek seemed like a pretty average guy. He wasn't overly friendly, but he wasn't rude either. I thought, okay, this might work. We had our own separate rooms in the apartment, and we didn't interact too much. The apartment itself was nice, new, modern, and in a good location. I was grateful for the company's help in settling in, but I had no idea that living with Derek would soon become the most stressful part of my life. Derek wasn't exactly the warm, talkative type. He kept to himself most of the time, and I did the same. We both had busy schedules with our new jobs, so it made sense that we didn't interact much outside of the occasional small talk. But there were things that began to bother me about him, things that didn't seem right. For example, the first time we carpooled to work together, Derek asked me to pay him $5 for gas. Now, it wasn't a huge deal, but we were driving only a few minutes to get to work. Why would he ask for gas money for such a short ride? That should have been the first sign that something was off, but I brushed it off. Maybe he was just being cautious, I thought. Things started to get more odd when Derek began to act strange around the office. He wasn't exactly friendly with anyone. I couldn't quite put my finger on it, but I began to feel that he was just a bit selfish. He didn't seem to care about others or about building relationships with people. He was there to work, but that was all. He was a hard worker, but in a way that felt like it was all about him. It wasn't like he was rude, but there was an undertone of competitiveness that made me feel uncomfortable. Despite all of this, I tried not to judge him. After all, we were new at the company, and maybe it was just nerves or a matter of adjusting to a new environment. But deep down, I started to question whether living with Derek was going to work out. The first signs of trouble didn't come all at once. They were subtle, almost easy to ignore, but as the days went on, I couldn't ignore them any longer. It all started with my phone. Every morning, I would wake up late, despite having set my alarm for the usual time. And it wasn't just a one-time thing. It became a pattern. I'd plug my phone in every night, set my alarm, and then wake up to find my phone dead and the alarm going off late. I couldn't figure it out. I wasn't a deep sleeper. I had never had trouble waking up on time before, but now I was constantly running late for work. I started to question whether I had somehow forgotten to plug my phone in, but I knew I hadn't. I did the same thing every night. Something was wrong, but I couldn't pinpoint what it was. The more I thought about it, the more I began to suspect Derek. Maybe he had somehow been messing with my phone. It didn't make sense, but it was the only explanation that fit. Then, a few days later, it happened again. But this time, it wasn't my phone, it was my files. I woke up one morning to find that my work folder, my important documents, was out of place. Not just a little bit off, but completely scattered on the floor. My files were out of order, and everything was disorganized. It was like someone had gone through my things. Now, I was really starting to wonder, was Derek behind all of this? At first, I had brushed off the little incidents as coincidences, but now things were starting to add up. My phone was always dead, my files were always out of order, and I was always late. It couldn't all be a coincidence. Someone was trying to sabotage me, and I was starting to think that someone was Derek. At this point, I couldn't ignore my suspicions any longer. Derek was messing with me. I didn't have proof yet, but I was sure of it. The things that had been happening, my phone dying, my files being messed up, couldn't just be accidents. I started to keep a closer eye on him. I began hiding my phone under my pillow at night and locking my bedroom door whenever I went to bed. I didn't want to make it too obvious that I suspected him, but I had to protect my things. One night, I stayed up later than usual, pretending to sleep, hoping to catch Derek in the act. I heard him moving around in the living room, and I waited for him to come into my room, but nothing happened. Nothing at all. It was frustrating. Was I just paranoid? Was I making all of this up in my head? But then it happened. One morning, I woke up to find my files once again scattered all over the floor. This time, it was clear that someone had deliberately gone through them. I couldn't believe it. I knew at this point that Derek was messing with me, but when I confronted him that night, his reaction was exactly what I had expected. He denied everything, of course. He told me I was being ridiculous, that I was just disorganized. But deep down, I knew he was lying. I just didn't have enough proof to call him out on it. A few days after the confrontation, things got even worse. One night, I woke up to find my work laptop unplugged and dead. My suit, the one I had carefully laid out the night before for an important meeting, was wrinkled and ruined. It was as if someone had deliberately messed with my things. At this point, I knew for sure. Derek was trying to sabotage me. I couldn't let this go on any longer. I stormed into the living room and confronted him once again. This time, I wasn't going to hold back. I yelled at him, demanding answers, but Derek didn't care. He just shrugged it off, saying it was my problem, that I was overreacting. But I knew the truth. He had been messing with me all along. That night, I started hiding everything. My phone, my laptop, my work clothes, everything I needed for work. I kept hidden in my room. I couldn't trust Derek anymore, and I had to protect myself. But even with all of this, I knew I couldn't keep living like this. I needed to confront him again, but I was starting to lose hope. After a few nights of staying up late, trying to catch Derek in the act, I finally saw him. One night, I heard movement in my room. I quickly turned on the lamp, and there he was, standing near my desk. As soon as he saw the light, he bolted back to his room. He knew he was caught, but when I followed him, he was already in bed, pretending to sleep. I called him out on it, but he acted like I was crazy. He said I was imagining things, that I was paranoid. I had no proof, but I knew he was lying. I couldn't let him get away with this, but what could I do? How could I prove it? A few days after the confrontation, something unexpected happened. I overheard some coworkers talking about Derek. Apparently, he had been fired for harassing a female coworker. I was shocked, but in some twisted way, it made sense. Derek had been sabotaging me all along. His firing was the final piece of the puzzle, but that wasn't all. When I got home that night, I found that Derek had destroyed the apartment. My room was a disaster. Furniture was broken, my things were scattered all over the place. Derek had left his mark. I knew I had to report him, but I didn't know how to prove it. After Derek was gone, I thought things would settle down, but the truth was, I couldn't shake the feeling that something had been off with Derek all along. His actions had left a scar, one that would stay with me for a long time. I had learned a valuable lesson. Always trust your instincts, even when you don't have proof. Sometimes the people you least expect are the ones who can bring you the most trouble. I never saw Derek again, but I'll never forget how he tried to ruin my life. And in the end, I learned that some people aren't just coworkers or roommates. They're dangerous people who will stop at nothing to get what they want. And the hardest part? Knowing that you can't always stop them in time.